Looks great, super cheap, super easy. This is a project anybody can do. I recommend that you have maybe not even one, but a couple of these that are sitting around of various sizes and thicknesses. And that way, whenever you have some leftover concrete or materials from what you're making, you can just waste them into these molds. Okay, here we are back with the brick mold. I've already cast once through this. I did an aircrete block. This time I'm going to cast a full strength mortar block, and I'm going to use 3 parts sand to 1 part Portland cement mixed with some water into the consistency that you see here. Now, I've used white sand and white Portland cement. So the white Portland cement, I mean, none of this stuff is really easy to find, but it's out there from hardware stores, specialty concrete suppliers, stucco people, concrete pool workers. These are the people who typically have ready access to white Portland cement. The sand component is different. I mean, bulk aggregate suppliers or providers are a little bit hard to find, so you're stuck looking for decorative products which you can handsomely overpay for at the local hardware store. Something that I found that works pretty well and is very cheap is 2040 White Lightning, which is a white silica sand. It's like 90% white, 10% black, so like a salt and pepper kind of look. And this would typically be used for sandblasting applications, but it works fine to mix with concrete. With this particular sand, it's a coarser grain, and you're going to get a coarser feel, and it'll be a little bit harder to get a nice smooth finish if that's what you're going for. But if you're casting into a block mold, do you really want a nice smooth finish? Because smooth means slippery. You need to be thinking traction, purchase, an aggressive like broom texture. Something like that would be suitable for stepping stones. It kind of depends on what your block mold is for, but this is conspicuously stepping stone shaped, and I don't want it too smooth. So I'm probably going to be okay with the fact that I don't get a really smooth finish with this 3-to-1 sand to cement mix using a coarse sand. In terms of strength, this 3-to-1 is going to be super strong, which is great. That's exactly what I want. This block's a little bit thick, even for a stepping stone. It doesn't need to be this thick, but we're going a little overkill here. No matter what kind of finish you want on this, it's not a good idea to try to do it all at once. You want to just kind of get it in there, get it placed. You want to get the air bubbles out of there to whatever extent you're planning on doing for this. And then that's pretty much it. Knock it flat, trowel it a little bit, but we don't want to trowel it too much. You're not going to get a good finish at this point because we're raising too much water to the surface. We have to let this set up a little bit more, and then it will respond a lot better to your finishing techniques. I mean, we could even just leave it like this. If I was in a real hurry and what I wanted to do, I would just take a wet broom and I would drag it across the surface one time. Done. We're done here. But that's not what I'm going for here. I want to give this a little bit more time to set up, and then I'm going to come back and touch it up a little bit further. So what we've got here is a sponge finish or a sponge float finish. A sponge would work just as fine. This creates a lot of tack, a lot of purchase. And that's exactly what I'm going for with this stone. If you wanted a very smooth finish, well, now would be the time. You would wet your trowel down and you would do a hard trowel of the surface. Because it's starting to set up, you can lean on the trowel a little bit more, use a little bit more trowel edge, and in doing so, you can get a very sheen finish to the surface. But as I was mentioning before, since I'm using this for a stepping stone, I don't want that at all. I don't want anyone to slip and fall or hurt themselves. I want there to be a lot of tack and a lot of purchase. So a sponge float finish is perfect. It allows me to fix some of the imperfections here in the first rough finish. And now I'm going to have something that's going to be a really nice finished product here. What I'll do is I'll let this cure for a couple days, and then I'm going to come back with a straight edge and just scrape the surface lightly. As long as I don't dig the corner of the trowel or the straight edge in, you won't gouge and cause some, an imperfection to the surface. You'll just take some of that loose sand that's kind of half exposed off the surface layer here. And that's it. That's going to be a finished product. Here we are back 24 hours later. It's not fully set up yet, but sets up really quick, when it's warm out and you're using the white Portland cement. So it's going to be loud, but I'm just going to give this a quick scrape here. Let's go ahead and demold it. Like magic. like magic. Okay, let's make something else with this. We're not done with the versatility of this very, very basic brick mold. So up until now, we've had, a thicker, larger one with a very aggressive tack or surface profile for, to make it very anti-slip. I casted a brick of aircrete, which is very difficult to cast. It leaves a lot of residual on your mold, so it's unforgiving in terms of like mold longevity. But I think this next one will be the one that most of you will be interested in. So let's talk about what we're doing here. As you can see, we've got our basic mold again. I've added one line of tuck tape, and I'm going to continue doing so here, and that's going to give me a better side profile versus this gross, rough, pockmarked, stained. Like, that's, if you're making something that's buried, it doesn't really matter, but maybe you're not and you want the sides to look nice as well. The tuck tape's going to help with that. So I'm going to go ahead and finish putting that around there, and then we can talk about the next step, which is going to be making some changes to the inside here, and I think you'll like how that turns out. It would be a lot easier to apply the tuck tape to the individual pieces. Just wrap it around entirely and then install them. For sure, that would be the faster, easier way to apply this. That's better. So as you can see here, we've just got basically all we're trying to go for is full coverage of the sides, no wrinkles. That's the hard part. It's sticky, a little hard to work with, but not so hard that you can't just peel it off and try again and smooth it out. And this is going to work really nicely for what we're doing here. So what's the next step now? I could, do what I did before and go ahead and pour inside of this and then finish the top. But what we're going to do this time is we're going to flip it upside down. The bottom is going to be the top of our finished product. And there's a number of reasons why this is going to be an advantage. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to change the thickness. Some of you might be looking at this one thinking, yeah, but it's too thick, that's not useful. I mean, you could use different wood, that'd be fine. Or you could just take a piece of 1/2 inch high density insulation, cut it to fit, and there you go. What's that behind your back, Steve? Oh, why this? Just a polyurethane texture skin from an actual piece of granite. If you remember way back to the beginning of the video, one of the things I don't like is the really smooth textured paver stones, landscaping rocks, things like that. I like that this granite texture skin has a very aggressive stamp texture. Now you can buy these from a local concrete specialty supply store. Smaller ones are called texture skins, and they're just used for small touch-up stuff versus the large mats, which are many thousands of dollars. Something like this might come in a 2 foot by 2 foot square. I cut this one to fit for this application. You can see the granite texture there. You can make your own with these as well. I plan on making a video shortly about how to make something like this for yourself using silicone. So be sure to like and subscribe to this video so that you can see that when it comes out. For now, what we're going to do is we're going to keep the foam in there because I like the thinner thickness. Here I don't like it to be quite that thick. It's unnecessary. I'm not going to use any silicone or anything like that to seal it in here. We've got a pretty decent fit. It's not perfect, but it's pretty snug. I'm going to go ahead and apply a sealer to this. Again, universal mold release. Being that this is polyurethane rubber, it's not really going to have a lot of, ability to stick to the concrete surface, but you do want the pull and the reveal to go smoothly such that you don't mar the surface. And that's how we're going to get that, is with a little bit of release agent. Going to take a deep breath, going to spray some of this on here, and then vacate the area for the time being. In each of these, I have just white Portland cement and water mixed together to be pancake batter or something kind of close to that. These are the slurries I'm going to use to mix some interesting colorations here. Let's see what we have. A couple of different greens and a brown. This is just latex paint. You don't want this stuff to dry out. So any spot that looks like it's thin and it's going to dry out, give it a nice glob of that there. In this bucket, I have about 2 parts white sand to 1 part white Portland cement. So that's going to be good enough for the bottom side here of this stone that we're pouring. Go ahead and set this aside for a day or two, and then we'll demold it and see how this turned out. And here we are back a few days later. Let's go ahead and demold this. I'm excited to see how this one turned out. Let's see how this looks. I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I hope you like the color of this, because I certainly do. And the edges. Camo colored stepping stones. Just give that a minute to absorb in there, and that color will start to be a little bit more even. I think there's more that we can do with this thing, and other than just making a simple block. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Let's make a tabletop with this thing. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to let this set up, and I don't want to demold this right away. I want to give this a good amount of time, because we've got a couple different things happening. We've got some thinner edges to our concrete. When we go to demold this, all the foam's going to break apart. Like, there's going to have to be a little bit of force used, and it would be pretty easy to crack this thing. So give this thing maybe a couple of days, and then I'm going to demold it. Show and tell. I think this is a good example of something else that we can do with our basic brick mold here. Come up with something pretty interesting. As far as a tabletop goes, this thing totally works. You could be done right now. Bolt a base onto the bottom here, and Bob's your uncle. I hope you found this information helpful.